I am Jennyne Kennedy. I am the Client Experience Coordinator at Keill and Associates. And today I am once again joined by Geoffrey Sgarbossa, hi Jeff, how are you?
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for that. Okay, so today we're going to be on this second part, we're going to be focusing on the core basis. So the financial management and investment planning aspects of our financial planning areas. So the previous discussion, we talked about building that strong foundation. Um, if both members now we're looking at joining a partner, we're looking at building a relationship with somebody. We found that's Mr. and Mrs. Perfect. We want to start building together. So we've built our own foundations. Now we need to merge the two. What does that look like? So it's people. I mean, yes, I don't want to take away from marriage, and it's new, it's fun, it's love, everybody's happy, it's great. I don't want to take away from that, nor should we. But we need to remember that life is treat it like a business because we need to earn money, we need to pay the bills, we need that all of the life is going to when the honeymoon is over, life is going to start creeping in again. So you want to make sure that you're building that strong foundation. We did it as an individual in the last portion. Now we want to do it as a group. And that starts with where is that income coming from? So the average person is making about 65,000 a year, 3 million. Now we've got 6 million to work with as a family unit. How are we going to do it? So that income and net worth statement is that it starts. Everything starts from there. Eventually you're going to want to buy a house. It starts from that income and net worth statement. Track it from day one. Um, as long as you're tracking it, as long as you are seeing the trends trending forward, we want to have that positive cash flow as a family. We want to have so you can make those educated decisions. Some issues that you're going to run into though when you're merging those two businesses, those two members, those two people, is nobody treats money, nobody thinks money the same way. So we've got money personalities. So are you a spender? Are you a saver? Are you a worrisome? Are you a gambler? If we start blending those two people together, uh, they just like any good relationship, they can complement each other if you know for it. So you want to have that discussion to make sure that where is that happy medium? Somebody is not aggressively saving, and that spender wants to go and spend their money. By versus versa, somebody wants to save for that rainy day because it makes them feel good, but their partner is always spending every dollar they got. It's going to start creating that animosity early on. So have that conversation. How are you going to account for those different personalities or the different relations with money? Um, ownership types. So now we're not the individual anymore. Now we've got a partner. Now we've got a team member. Um, there's different types of beyond the individual now. Now we've got some interest accounts. We've got joint with right of survivorship. We've got joint tenant. All of these joint accounts, there's no right or wrong answer, but each one of them is going to have its own tax treatment, its own estate treatment, its own separation treatment. It's all going to have its own benefits and trade-offs. Which is right for you? Again, you have to do that discussion. You have to get into the details of your life, of your needs. But there's a lot more ownership types that we've got to work with now. Um, sharing the responsibility. So that's another thing. So it's very common. I've got it down there, the managers and the followers and sharing that responsibility. We can blend those in together. So who is going to, and there's no right or wrong answer here. How are you going to split that money? How is that income going to go? I'm going to pay for the mortgage, you're going to pay for the groceries. Or we're going to put all of the money into the one pot, pay the bills, and when we share what's left over. There's no right or wrong answer here. I've seen in my travels 100 different ways where people divvy up the responsibilities, divvy up the share. Some of them make sense to me, some of them don't, but it's working for them. There's nothing wrong with that. Find what works for you. Have that conversation. Don't be afraid. And then we get into that managers and followers, the same thing, where what if that manager, it's very common for one spouse to be the financial manager and the other one to say, don't care, I don't want to deal with it. And that's okay. But what happens when that manager can't manage anymore? What happens when maybe in military for 20 plus years before putting on my suit, going away on deployments, going away on exercise, gone for extended periods of time, my spouse had to take over, ready or not. So there's nothing wrong with that manager kind of managing that day to day, but that person that isn't usually involved, they need to know what's going on. They need to be part of the team. They need to be part of the decision making. They need to understand what's going on. So they're ready because who knows, you might get in an accident on the way to work. And now all of a sudden they have to, ready or not, they have to take over. So make sure the responsibility is being shared in such a way that you're comfortable with. And even though there's one person managing, both are able to manage the day to day. And that will come down to that guilt-free spending. So that I mentioned before. I mean, I still have my goals. I still want to go out and then spend my money on stupid stuff, and then so does my spouse. How much can we do without feeling like it's going to be a discussion, like it's going to be an argument? You want to have that your own identity. You want to have that. So set those boundaries ahead early on to make sure that who's managing things, make sure the other person knows how to do it, who's responsible for what, and what can I do, how much money, what can I spend on whatever to that is for me. And then we get on to the bigger one too, is there's the children and money, like we mentioned earlier on in the last one, where when should we talk to an advisor? Building that strong foundation starts as a children. So have that discussion early with your children. There's no right or wrong answer. There's lots of books, there's lots of resources, there's lots of other parents out there that have tried and tested different things. The actual answer is, how do you do it? I mean, the cool thing is my son came home, he was showing me they're actually starting to teach some of this stuff in school now, which is great. So it's getting them that gone are the days that I get $10 for my birthday, I go and spend it, now I don't have $10, I can't spend it. Now everything's plastic. It's very much, it's more difficult for that child to really grasp the value of that money because it's just, well, just use the card again. So find ways to get your children understanding the value of money, whether it be what works for my son is I pay half. He saves half, I pay half. What works for my daughter is we make sure it pays in cash, and what are you not going to be able to spend. Like every child is going to be different, but don't be afraid to start having that conversation early on, because that will help them become much more ready for becoming an adult. And this is when we get into the investment planning. So again, we're not going to tell you what to invest in, where to go. The emphasis here is we're now blending two people with very different personalities, very different goals, very different. So the trick here is we don't want to give up your individual goals. Just because you're joining a team doesn't mean you have to give up your individual goal. But some of those goals might change, and the family goals might take priority now. And so you have to start identifying those family goals that we're both going to put emphasis on, and we're both going to work towards, and what we can do on the individual side. Investment styles. So am I a swing trader, a day trader, aggressive investor? Do I want investment? Do I want dividends? There's no shortage of books on the shelf if you want to find different investment styles, different investment strategies. It's not just you anymore. How are you going to blend your different beliefs and your different goals and your different lifestyles with that team member to make sure that, and this comes into that risk tolerance as well. So one is much more aggressive and it doesn't mind the wild swings in the markets. The other is much more conservative and can't handle those swings. So where do you find that happy medium where that more risk averse spouse is not having a panic attack, things changed. If we went with the more aggressive one versus the more conservative portfolio where that more aggressive investor is getting angry because they're seeing all these opportunities they're missing. So you need to find that happy medium. You need to find that compromise, and you need to find what works for you to achieve your family goals and your individual. Now that we've joined, there's different opportunities that might arise now that we've got a spouse with regards to some income splitting and sharing and different credits and tax stuff. But there's also some attribution issues that we need to be aware of, and that's taxes. So we've got those joint, and we'll get into this in a second, but the rollovers. So because now that you've got a spouse, we've got some more opportunities that we can for estate planning and things like that. But what happens, and it's usually follow the money. So what happens if I contribute, my spouse withdraws something? How do I know that that money is not going to get attributed back to me, which can happen in a lot of cases. So you have to make sure that the money is being shared properly without it triggering attribution rules. Beneficiary designations and rollovers. So before you're on your own, pretty much every registered account, insurances and this, that, everybody kind of understands that beneficiary designation. You name a beneficiary, stuff gets paid out on death, but on a rollover provision, now that you've got a legal spouse, some of these registered accounts, some of these joint accounts allow for a rollover provision where that surviving spouse can assume ownership without jeopardizing contribution limits, without taking that immediate tax liability. So where are those opportunities? And just because you've got that spouse doesn't mean a rollover is better. Some situations might say, you know what? No, it's better to take that tax liability. Better to do the rollover. It's better to. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just different considerations now that you need to look at. And then a couple of the key accounts that are kind of central to our conversation here today is the RESP. So the RESP, Registered Education Savings Plan, it's designed to save for education. Doesn't necessarily need to be a minor. Doesn't necessarily, but it saves for education. You put money in, as long as the beneficiary is eligible, the government will put government grants in the form of education savings grants. And then as long as there's no government, as long as it's being pulled out for education, the withdrawals gets taxed in the hands of the beneficiary at their much lower tax rate. Usually, sometimes, in many cases, no tax liability because they're below that basic personal amount. And then the spousal RSP is a very powerful plan with spouses. So it usually comes into play where you've got a higher income spouse and a lower income spouse. That higher income spouse can contribute to that spousal RSP and get the tax reduction at their higher tax bracket. And then as long as money stays in and follows the specific rules for withdrawal, that lower income spouse can later withdraw the money at their lower income. So you can take some of that higher income money and receive it in a lower tax bracket by using the spousal RSP. These are kind of the main topics with regards to the financial management and investment. Again, with what's right for you, no, but these are just considerations you need to look at. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Jennyne to kind of wrap up this next segment.
Thank you for that, Geoff. That was very informative, lots of information. So normally we would have a question and answer period, but seeing as how this is a recording rather, I'm just wondering if you could give your top two takeaways from your presentation.
There's one main overriding goal and theme and kind of all four of these parts, and it's team. We're taking two individuals and we're blending them we're trying to build them a team. They're becoming a team, they're becoming team members. So right from the get-go, they need to get into their mind that I'm a team now. I'm not an individual anymore. So with that, we talked about all of the different money styles and personalities and different goals. There's a whole bunch of different scenarios and strategies to use. As long as you have the communication between the two of you right from the get-go, you build that team, you know where you're going as a team, you've set those boundaries, you're setting yourself up for success at that point.
Thank you everyone again for joining us. We look forward to you joining us back again for part 3 and part 4, as this was part 2 of the Serious Money Seminar recorded series for Latching and Hatching. If you have any questions about the topics that were covered in this recording, or if you would like to schedule a complimentary discovery meeting with a member of our advisory team, please reach out to our office at info@keillandassociates.ca. Thank you very much. Take care.